Hello and welcome to my office hours. My name is Dr. Carolina Küper-Tetzel. Today, I would like to talk about perfectionism. Last semester, I did a bit of work with my students to learn more about perfectionism and to see how we can overcome perfectionism. Because while in some ways it can be helpful, in other ways it can also hinder success and completion of tasks. So what is perfectionism? It is the habit to set very high goals, so high that you can't possibly achieve the goals. Also to have very high standards that are really, really difficult to achieve. It is also the observation that once you have set a goal and you're almost there to reach it, you might shift that goal to make it a bit more optimal. So shifting to higher and higher standards over time, leading to the effect that whatever you do, it is never enough. It's never good enough. Now, you can already see that the consequences of that can be that you feel anxious about approaching tasks. You feel that you are afraid to fail a task as well. And other consequences are, for example, that you may not take on new challenges. You may be afraid to take on new challenges because, you might not reach the goal. You might not be able to produce a perfect outcome. And in order to avoid that feeling of uncertainty, one solution could be to not engage with it at all. Now, if that's the consequence, then learning will stop. So you will stop learning and you will not acquire new skills and so on. Another consequence of very high perfectionism is procrastination. So you're always postponing tasks because you never feel that you will be able to work on them to that very high standard that you have set for yourself. And so one thing that is important that students do when they experience perfectionism in that very severe on that very severe level is to think about how can they challenge that perfectionism on a very individual level. So in that resource that I'm going to share with you that I used with my students, there's one very important quote in there that I think really resonated with me and with my students. The quote is this: "Students produce their finest, more authentic and original work when rigid, inequitable definitions and targets of perfection are torn down." Now, more concrete consequences of perfectionism are that students tend to avoid tasks or assignments, that they tend to miss deadlines because, again, they might be working on that assignment, but it never feels that it's done and ready to be submitted. That they avoid participation in group work, or that they disengage with feedback altogether. And so one important lesson that I wanted my students to learn is what we want to prioritize is completion of tasks. We want them to scale down the very high levels of standards that they have set for themselves. We want to rethink what the goal is. The goal is not perfection. The goal in education is learning. It is about sometimes making mistakes, learning from those mistakes, and moving on. It is also important for them to highlight to them that they will always be improving their skills over time. So they will know more after one assignment and after the next assignment and so on. And this is something that I think it's important to show them that this is something they should be paying attention to. It's important to lower the bar sometimes, so that not all tasks will require their 100%. They need to prioritize, and sometimes it's important to help them prioritize, to show them which tasks are more important at a specific point in time, and to focus on those tasks and so on. Sometimes it is important to be comfortable with good enough. It's easier said than done, but it is about saying, okay, for that deadline, I just want you to produce a draft, and it does not have to be perfect. I don't expect any perfection here. I have a course with my students where they have to give presentations on a weekly basis. And I start my students by saying, you know what? The first presentation you're going to give is going to be terrible. I know this. I have very low expectations, okay? But what we're going to do here, we're going to learn from this, and we're going to build your skill from one week to the next. The other important thing when it comes to helping them to overcome perfectionism is to break down tasks. Sometimes those tasks that they want to achieve, those goals that they set themselves, they are way too big, way too high. So help them to break them down. What you need to achieve first, what is the next step, and so on. And always complete a step and be happy that you have completed that step. Be aware of this before moving on to the next one. And a final recommendation is to help them recognize any kind of unproductive thoughts. Sorry about that. So very often perfectionists will fixate on very minor details and not really see the bigger picture. What is this whole assignment for? What are the skills that we want you to show us and to demonstrate as a whole for that specific assignment? So what can help with that as well, if they spend a lot of time on very minor details and so on, ask them to track their time. So how long are they actually spending on specific aspects of that assignment, and make them realize that maybe they're spending too much time on something that is maybe quite minor. So I'm going to share the resource with you because it comes with many more suggestions and tips, but I found this very helpful, and I applied it last semester in my very massive lectures of 300 students. I also applied it to smaller seminars of just 20 students, but also when supervising dissertation students, a group of 7 students last semester and this semester, to help them overcome this and to work continuously on smaller goals. All right, I hope this was helpful, and I see you next time. Bye.